Hey, sports fans and savages, welcome to Greg Medford Show. Greg, your host, coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. We've had a lot of politicians in, we've had some business people in, we've had industry leaders, we've had gunfighters, we've had naked people, we've had the whole gamut, and this season is going to be, season 2 is going to have more and more diversity. And when I say diversity, I just mean different stuff, not any sort of weighted demographic of people. Today our host has been a friend of my industry and the business I'm in, and we've known each other for several years. He's been around fighting the good fight. You know, we hear people bandy about the phrase or the word lobbyist. We hear people talk about bills getting passed. You always hear about this stuff like in the news after the fact. Most people don't really have much of a concept of what's required for those bills that run through either state or federal legislation that run through that process. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, and if you stick around, what you're going to find out are some of the kookier things going on in the United States, limiting rights and the attempts to open up our rights. You're going to hear about some of the funky. I'm gonna ask our guest today about some of the funky things you'd be surprised about, and you're going to learn something about an area that doesn't get as much coverage as, say, the Second Amendment and any discussions about Second Amendment, but it's kind of caged and framed all in that same type of right, same type of fight going on quietly behind the scenes. We're going to talk a little bit about knives and their limitations in the U.S. and how we see those shifting. And then we're going to talk about the process of what it's like to go through and nudge legislation or be a part of crafting legislation or be a part of stopping legislation, which is something that's valuable for you or for your hausfrau. If you got a type A hausfrau who's mad at something going on in your state, in your hometown, where they can go and knowing where to push and exert pressure is probably one of the most valuable. It's the most valuable thing besides voting. Knowing where to apply pressure so that you're not wasting your energy to nudge the body politic is something everybody should know before they go trying to take action and do something to change the world. So without any further ado, we'll welcome Doug Ritter to the show from Knife Rights. Doug, how are you?
I'm great, Greg. Thanks for having me.
I love the buttons.
There we go.
The buttons. All right, people, settle down. And they listen really well when you tell them to quiet down. Hey, so you're based out of Scottsdale here.
Gilbert, but close.
Okay, I thought you were over in Scottsdale. Were you doing this 12 years ago when I jumped into the business?
Yeah, we've been at this now in terms of actually getting legislation done since 2009. We founded it in 2006.
Okay, so kind of right around the same time it was all gelling as I was coming to life here. Talk to me a little bit about legislation that you guys have had successes with as far as blocking. So let's talk about blocked limitations that were going to get put on us for either any kind of knife thing. Can you give us a quick kind of rundown of the gamut?
Sure. I mean, the majority of what we do is passing legislation that repeals existing knife bans. Okay. But for example, a number of years ago in Nevada, they wanted to limit or define a dangerous weapon as a knife 2 inches and above. Okay. And sort of a quirk of the legislative process, we ended up having to stop that bill twice, because we thought we had it all finished, and then it came back up to life, sort of like a zombie.
One for every inch. So what was the gist of what they were? It was just a 2 inch limitation, and you guys are like, are you out of your minds?
So it would have meant anyone who carried a knife over 2 inches would be carrying a dangerous weapon. as opposed to a tool.
And who is sponsoring that? Is that typically batshit crazy lefties?
It is most often Democrats, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things to understand about knife rights is we are the only Second Amendment organization to get support from the left because it's not about guns. The majority of our legislation that we get passed repealing knife bans passes with bipartisan support. Often unanimous.
And this is a right to keep and bear arms.
Yeah,
it's the Second
there's
Amendment.
nothing in the Bill of Rights. There's nothing in the Second Amendment that says firearms.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
That's what we.
So that's your angle that you guys.
Yeah, we're the second front in the defense of the Second Amendment.
Okay.
Because it doesn't say firearms, it says arms, and that if you look at our logo, it says essential tools, essential rights. And if we want to carry these tools, the most sturdy defense we have is the Second Amendment, which is becoming, is being attacked all the time, but is also gaining ground. I mean, Georgia just became the 25th state with constitutional carry, which was great because it also, in the process, eliminated the last carry ban for knives in the state of Georgia. We had gotten rid of everything else prior to this. So 25 states, half the states now have constitutional carry. Compare that with a decade ago,
right,
when there were a handful.
Right.
So the Second Amendment supports our efforts to make sure that we can carry these tools that are occasionally used by people in defense of themselves or the family.
Okay, so we got the 2-inch ding-dongery of Nevada. What else?
So we've had a number of bills that would limit lengths. That's the most common bill that we run up against.
Yeah. Democrats seem to want short lengths. Is there some theme there that we can interpolate from that?
I would not want to take advantage of that line you just threw out. But there are crazy legislators on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, sure.
And we end up dealing with them all. But when you look at what we've accomplished, I mean, we have NRA F-rated Democratic legislators
who support stuff that you do.
Who not just support stuff, sponsor our bills. That doesn't happen in the gun world.
Okay,
it's unique.
So blocking the 2-inch thing in Nevada. Tell us some. Well, I want to hear some wins. It gives people a sense, kind of.
So in total, since 2010, we have defeated 7 bills that wanted to somehow or other restrict what you could carry as a knife.
Can you tell us states? Because the listeners love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they can go on the Knife Rights site because I don't remember them. I'm old.
New York?
I don't
Was
remember.
New York in there?
No, New York was one of our wins. In fact, it took 9.5 years and close to $1 million.
Okay. All right, so, I mean, you remember the New York win. So, all right, so you've got some stuff that you blocked. You don't have that all committed to memory, but you have bills you helped get through.
37. From 2010 till now, 37 bills that we are responsible for getting passed or our efforts were important to get passed.
Okay, you got give me some
27 states.
Give me some high points because guys are going to know.
So New York is probably was the most difficult fight.
And tell us the nature of that one.
So in New York City was abusing the gravity knife ban at the New York State level to arrest, over the course of a decade, over 70,000 people for carrying the kind of pocket knives that you produce. Mm-hmm. We were able to get the entire legislature behind our effort. Started out as a federal civil rights suit against the city of New York. Then we started legislation to try to essentially get rid of the gravity knife ban because that would prevent New York City from being able to abuse it in their enforcement. So over the course of that time, we passed 3 bills in the legislature. The first 2 were vetoed by Governor Cuomo. Even though they passed the first time, there were 21 nay votes in the entire legislature. The second time there were 6 nay votes in the entire legislature.
So you had dramatically overwhelming support.
Overwhelming support in a Democratic-controlled legislature. Meanwhile, the federal civil rights lawsuit was proceeding through 2 appeals to the Second Circuit. We are for conference at the Supreme Court for our lawsuit, and we get our bill passed through the legislature again.
This is the third time.
Third time, 1 nay vote. So 2 weeks from then, our case is going to be before the Supreme Court. If they decided to take the case, there's no question, I think, that we would have won. And even though it wasn't a 2A case, it dealt with an area of civil rights law that the Second Amendment, the anti-Second Amendment community often uses to dispense with 2A cases. Mm-hmm. And so it would have been a huge win for the Second Amendment community. Governor Cuomo couldn't stand that, so he eventually signed our bill.
So he relented the pressure, and he didn't want to have a precedent changed at the court.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was when
did that pass? How long ago was that?
That was summer of 2019.
So I haven't been back to New York since COVID bullshit started.
I can't blame you.
And I just love going to the city. I wouldn't want to live there, but I love going there. I love going out and eating and drinking and being out with friends and people and socializing. I came along after the show, the New York show had left Times Square, I guess, mm-hmm. and bumped over to Jersey City. Is that why it went to Jersey City? Because of that? And so could it now be back in the city if they had the...
Theoretically, yes.
So can we carry my pocket knives now in New York City?
In New York City, as long as the blade is under 4 inches, and as long as it's kept completely 100% concealed, so not clipped to your pocket, not printing in your pocket, like nobody needs to know it exists, then yes, you can legally carry in New York. But you can carry a lock blade knife, and you can carry a true gravity knife now, as long as the blade is under 4 inches, because that's administrative code as opposed to state code.
How do we get rid of the 4-inch? The blade length restrictions are just stupid.
Are there any knife restrictions that aren't irrational and idiotic and stupid?
I agree with you.
That's what we do.
The blade length thing is the dumbest thing ever. So can that be beaten in New York, or is that just something everyone's got to live with?
So that is a New York City ordinance, right? Not a state ordinance. The odds of getting that repealed in New York City?
0.
Pretty much.
And there's nobody that can supersede that and say it's an unconstitutional limitation? That would be the only approach. You'd have to you'd have to do a high court overruling.
And you're dealing with the Second Circuit.
Right. And they're lib crazy, right?
They're
a very left-leaning court.
Very left-leaning court. So otherwise we wouldn't have never gotten to the Supreme Court.
Right. Right. So
it was,
I know. So for my listeners, you guys all know I'm a savage right-leaning person, and Doug has to maintain a bit of Switzerland since he dances with both sides of the ballroom.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're a nonpartisan organization, which, if you look at it, the NRA, the Second Amendment Foundation, these are all really nonpartisan organizations. And a decade ago, 20 years ago, there were plenty of folks on the left who supported the right to bear arms. That has changed.
Bifurcation of everybody.
It's become very partisan in the last decade. But there's, we're still a non-partisan organization. And like I said, in the Second Amendment community, we're the only guys getting support from the left.
So it's just you and your wife on this crusade?
Myself, my wife, our professional lobbyist. Yeah, that's basically it.
And when people donate money to you guys, it goes towards legal fees and lawyers' bills. Is that about the gist of it?
No, actually, legal fees and lawyers' bill are, with the exception of like a lawsuit in New York City, really a very small part. It goes for lobbying. We get things done because I and my lobbyists show up at the state houses, and Todd is really good at working with both sides of the aisle, and it's not unusual for the expenses for some of these trips to be multiple thousands of dollars, because you find out there's a bill hearing, you have to buy an airplane ticket for the next day or the day after.
Yeah.
Hotels are expensive. All of that stuff is expensive. And some states, Ohio is a classic example. I mean, we had 11 hearings in Ohio to get their switchblade manufacture and sale ban repealed last year. And we've already had 3 hearings, we had 7 hearings, last year on our bill to pass knife law preemption. And we've already had 3 hearings to get it out of the House again this year.
In Ohio.
Each one of those trips costs multiple thousands of dollars.
Right.
That's where the big expense for us is.
There's the logistics of getting there and being in the fight.
You get things done by showing up. You can't write letters. You can't send emails. We get things done on the ground, walking the halls, taking legislators to dinner where that's appropriate. Some states it is, some states it isn't. Every state is different. I mean, that's one of the things I had to learn very, very early on, that just because I knew how legislation was made in Arizona, it doesn't mean that's how it's made in Texas or Missouri or anywhere else.
Let's talk about some kooky knife laws that are out there now, because I know people dig this kind of stuff. Where do we see the kookiest knife laws?
I don't know about kooky, but the ones that annoy me the most,
let's hear it,
are New Jersey. New Jersey is the only state where every knife violation is a felony from the get-go. Now, plenty of states, if have situations where if you have a misdemeanor, it's upgraded to a felony. That was one of the problems with the New York City problem, is folks who had misdemeanors 20 or 30 years ago were now being accused and being convicted of a felony for carrying a pocket knife. I mean, that sucked.
It's crazy that there's this type of enforcement going on, and I know your mission has been going on for a long time, and it's so popular right now to be decriminalizing almost everything. And I think about the legislatures in these states and the city councils in these municipalities that come up with this craziness. They're allowing people that rob stores to basically, no cash bail, just
it's crazy.
You sign a piece of paperwork and leave. But if someone comes through who's maybe from out of town, from outside the city limits, and they've got their pocket knife, and they get ensnared because of their pocket knife, they're in felonious trouble. That's crazy.
In New Jersey, that would be the case. The vast majority of arrests for illegal possession of a knife or something like that, or carry of a knife, typically occurs in connection with something else, whether it's traffic stop.
I've heard it called a pyramid crime. It's a pyramid offense.
It's sort of. New York City was unique in that people were literally being stopped on the street
for their clip
for nothing other than carrying this knife.
Right.
And even today, if you have a knife clipped to your pocket, they're going to stop you and they're going to issue you a violation, and they're going to seize the knife, even though they have absolutely no legal way to do that. There's no legal way they can take your knife for a violation, but they do that.
They could have used a few more people with knives yesterday in Brooklyn.
They could have used a few more people with a more formidable weapon as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Tell me some of the big, do you have any big kind of missions you're working on right now?
So right now is sort of the closing part of the legislative season. There are a few states like Ohio, for example, that run till the end of the year because they have year-long sessions. But the vast majority of states, legislative sessions are anywhere from 60 days to 90 days. So we're sort of at the tail end of a lot of that. For example, Georgia's constitutional carry bill passed the day before the end of the session. So we're sort of winding down. Ohio is probably the one state that we're really going to be active in because we still want to get knife law preemption done.
What's knife law preemption? Tell us what that is.
So knife law preemption is what it does is it makes state law preempt any local laws. So the effect, when it's done right,
it nullifies all the crazy little stuff.
It not just nullifies it; it prevents it from being passed in the future.
So if you could get knife law preemption in New York, it would stop the New York City craziness.
Right.
But that's not going to happen, of course, right now.
Unfortunately not. But for example, we have a bill in Pennsylvania that's moving slowly. Another state whose session continues on it at some length. Just got out of the House Judiciary Committee with a unanimous vote. The Senate version of that bill not only repeals their ban on switchblades, it also includes knife law preemption. So we're hopeful that in the end we'll end up with both. But by and large, over the course of since 2010, either we've gotten rid of bans first and then pass preemption, or in some states we passed preemption and then got rid of bans, or like in Arizona, there was no bans to get rid of, but that was my home state. This was the first state, your home state. This was the first state that we passed the nation's first knife law preemption bill in.
So is there such thing as a national preemption law?
So yes, there is, and no, there isn't. So it is possible for Congress to pass a law and include preemption in it. So for example, federal firearms laws are generally preemptive to a certain extent of state laws. And that's true with a lot of federal laws. If we have a bill currently in Congress, sponsored by my Congressman Andy Biggs here in Arizona, called the Knife Owners Protection Act, which is modeled on the Firearms Owners Protection Act. That also includes the repeal of the Federal Switchblade Act. So if that gets passed, unless we include preemption language in it, then it won't automatically override state and local laws. So the vast majority of our work is at the state level. What preemption allows us to do is there's no way a small organization like us can go to every city and town and fix their laws.
Of course.
But with state knife law preemption,
yeah, it's a broad brush.
Boom, it's taken care of.
Yeah. And how many states have you had preemption laws passed in?
I think we're up to 13 now.
That you guys were instrumental in getting those going?
Yeah. I mean, we are the organization that gets this done.
Okay. Pretty cool. Are there any states in play that you wouldn't expect we could get opened up and have them be more knife friendly? Are there any surprises? Or can I run down the list of Democrat states of, let's say, California, Oregon, Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut? I mean, is it that red and blue?
To a certain extent. But for example, a number of years ago, we got Illinois' switchblade ban repealed. That people would have bet against that ever happening.
Right.
This year, we got Virginia's switchblade ban repealed, and everyone says, yeah, but they got a Republican governor, but they didn't get a Republican Senate. And we got it out of the Senate.
And the governor was a fluke. That wasn't the expectation, right?
Yeah.
And glad it happened, but not what you make legislation on.
So we were able to get it out of the Senate unanimously. That's a Democratic-controlled Senate. So, yeah, it happens.
How about talk to me about Texas? Because I know a few years ago the Texas switchblade laws changed, and all of a sudden OTFs were allowed in Texas, and everyone went batshit crazy.
So it's interesting. So since you bring it up, it is always interesting to watch the reaction when we get a switchblade ban repealed, because, for example, though from your point of view, everyone batshit crazy, to use your words, in Texas when we got the switchblade ban repealed.
Because for like a year, everybody's like, yeah, we like knives. Do you have any out the fronts?
Yeah. So that was, if you look at the industry as a whole, that was relatively minor reaction. When we got the ban repealed in Illinois, I don't think you could find an automatic knife in America for sale that didn't go to Illinois for like 6 months. Because Texans,
they've got guns. They've got guns.
Well, they also carried switchblades. They didn't care about the law.
Right. But up in Illinois, they can't have anything.
Yeah. So the reaction is really Texas. Texas has been Texas isn't nearly as Texas as everyone thinks it is. To quote Governor Abbott when he signed our bill that repealed their ban on carry of a Bowie knife. Did you know that until we got that fixed, it was illegal to carry a Bowie knife in Texas?
No.
You could possess one. You couldn't carry one.
How the hell is that even possible in Texas?
Because Texas ain't nearly as Texas as everyone thinks it is.
Yeah.
So Texas has a session every other year. Their legislature doesn't meet but every other year. So the good news is they can only screw things up every other year. The bad news is they can't fix things.
Yeah, right.
So we have been there for every session since I think 2013. And every year we roll back some more of their knife restrictions. So we're getting there slowly but surely.
All right. Where right now in the United States, where are switchblades or OTFs or automatic knives? Where are they banned?
They're outright banned in Hawaii.
Crazy.
Minnesota.
Minnesota, of all places? That's nuts. Isn't that where Rashida Tlaib's from? Oh, no, the other one, Elahin Omar.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Minnesota, civilian possession is outlaw banned in Washington State. I can't remember. There's two others.
Okay.
Virginia was the sixth. We got rid of that one, so that's down to 5.
In California, you're allowed to have them now?
Under 2 inches, you're allowed to carry.
Under 2 inches? That's what that little Microtech thing's for, right?
Yeah, all those little, those are California legal autos.
Oh.
But you can possess. You can't purchase, theoretically. How does that work?
Bizarre.
Look, if you think knife or gun laws are bizarre,
knife laws are crazy.
Knife laws are crazy. I mean, we came up with our Legal Blade app so that people that travel or even live within a state can pull up an app and discover what the laws are.
All right, so wait a minute.
People have no idea.
What is this Legal Blade app? Let me hear about it.
So the Legal Blade app is an app on, iPhone and Android that lists all the knife laws in all 50 states.
So if I go on my iPhone right now, hold on a second. Let's look this up. So if I go on my iPhone right this minute, it doesn't recognize my face with the microphone here. All right. And I go under the App Store, and I go into search.
Legal Blade, one word.
All right. Knife Rights, Legal Blade. This thing here, it's the second one down with your logo.
Yeah.
So I put in Legal Blade Laws, 3 words, and it popped right up. You guys can go there and check that out. Where can people go if they want to donate to the cause? Because we got knife slingers who watch this. You guys, you spend money belonging to organizations that organize and lobby and do stuff for all your firearm stuff. Do you do anything for your knife stuff? Because most people are not carrying a gun around every single day with them all the time, because even people who want to do that after a while realize what a pain in the ass it is. But people have knives with them all the time. Have you thought about donating any money to folks who are protecting that right? Because that could entangle you or ensnare you, especially when you're on vacation. So how does somebody donate if they want to donate to Knife Rights?
So they can certainly go to kniferights.org and make a donation. But honestly, wait a month. Because in about a month, we'll be launching our annual Ultimate Steel fundraiser.
Okay.
And we'll have somewhere in the order of $200,000 worth of knives, guns,
some stuff that they can
win for a donation.
Right. Got it.
So the vast majority of our donations come in then, because why wouldn't you donate when you can get a chance?
When does that?
Something?
So this is an online the organization gets lots of stuff donated to them, and then they put them
occasionally even in Medford.
I know, and then they get put up for sale.
Nope. It's like a raffle.
It's a raffle,
but it's not really a raffle, because a raffle, it's a waffle.
It's a waffle because raffles are regulated.
It's a waffle. It's not a raffle.
No matter what
Let me be
laws they
clear
come
about
up
that.
with,
It's not a raffle.
we all work around it. So what you guys can do is go there and check it out. Now, what if we have somebody on here who's like a firearms manufacturer. Can they donate a firearm?
Sure. We have a number of firearms manufacturers that we get donations
What if they're
from.
a whiskey distillery and they want to donate some whiskey to you guys to waffle off?
I think we can do that. I'm not sure about the legal prospects. With a firearm, we know everything goes through our FFL to their FFL.
Right.
I don't know about whiskey.
How about fentanyl? Apparently,
No,
you can
I
get
don't.
fentanyl anywhere, but the whiskey is really regulated.
Yeah, because the open borders are great for our fentanyl users.
You could walk out the front of this building and throw a rock and hit somebody on fentanyl in the forehead.
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
there's probably a certain amount of truth to
this
that.
whole I-17 corridor has just gone batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but we concentrate on knives.
yeah, I know, I see it. So, you've got some legislation in Ohio that you're nudging, and then you're going to be between sessions.
And Ohio and Pennsylvania are still live.
Okay.
Then we'll be between sessions working on next year's. I mean, as a matter of course, we don't talk about future legislation.
Okay.
Because, for example, there were a couple states that I would have sworn we would get bills filed in and moved this year, and didn't happen.
Okay.
And it's just the nature of the beast.
So what happens if you are going to legislature and you're trying to get them to enact legislation? Do you bring them a written bill?
So it depends. So sometimes a legislator in a state will see what we've done elsewhere, and they will file a bill, and then we'll go in and sometimes have to help them rewrite the bill because they didn't do it right the first time, and we'll lobby to actually get it passed. There are times legislators are politicians. Okay, they will sometimes file a bill just because it'll keep a
Certain group off their back or whatever.
right with no intention of doing it.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
we can go in and take the bill and get it passed once we convince them that this is a good idea. Texas, where we started with the switchblade ban, that was purely a publicity stunt. There was never any intention to actually get that bill passed. And I sent my lobbyist to Austin, and he met with the legislator, and he was able to talk him into, this could be a serious bill, and my constituents definitely need to have this. So that's one way it happens. Another way it happens is legislators hear about us and come to us and say, I want to fix my state. And so we will write them a bill. It just sort of depends. We go to various legislator meetings where legislators get together that are of the sort that we get an opportunity to talk to them, and we find potential sponsors there. In other places, for example, constitutional carry, we work to make sure that, okay, if you're doing a constitutional carry bill, let's try to
See if you can tag knives onto it.
Yeah.
Specify it. So it doesn't remain ambiguous or whatever.
Every state, every circumstance is totally different. You just, there's no rule. Being flexible and showing up are the two things that have carried us.
Is it all money? If you had let's say you had a sponsor like Elon Musk who just went crazy for knives, could you get much more done?
Yes. And that's partially because there are some states that are very difficult to get things done unless you can pay for a local lobbyist to assist you.
Yeah.
Virginia was a case like that. So we were able to get a sponsor and get a local lobbyist involved and be able to get that done. There are a number of states where if we want to get things done, we have to hire local lobbyists. Well, that is not cheap.
Right. What's a lobbyist charge?
It can be anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 a month.
Oh, that's how they do it. It's not like hourly like an attorney.
No. No.
What a fucking racket.
It's but it's a lot of people have a bad opinion of lobbyists.
Yeah, it's got a pejorative to it for sure.
But the fact of the matter is, if they didn't exist, the good stuff that we want to get done wouldn't get done. The fact that there are lobbyists out there trying to get bad things done, yeah, it's the nature of the beast. It's called competition.
Right.
It's called a democracy. It's called a republic. This is how we do it.
Marketplace of ideas.
But if our side doesn't have lobbyists,
we're not even at the game. We're not even showing up to the game if we don't do it. Okay.
Because the only way most of these legislators find out what they need to think about a bill is when somebody like Todd shows up and explains it to them.
Okay.
And says, here is why this is important to you and your constituents. It's like, oh, okay. Not always, but that's how we get people on our side.
You got to be there letting people know.
Yeah. And what we're doing makes sense once they understand and get past the whole West Side Story and all that kind of negative outlook about switchblades and that sort of thing. Once we're able to sit down with them and explain it to them, and sometimes we have trainers, so Todd will, whip out a one-hand opener, an assisted opener, and a switchblade trainers, and they go like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. That opens just as quickly or
the nice thing is
more quick.
In 18 months, I have it on good authority, there will be nobody left alive who actually knows what West Side Story is. So, so you'll be pretty good in that regard.
Wait a second. Does that mean I'm passing away in the next 18 months?
No, I mean people in the legislature.
Well, we'll see.
Okay, fascinating. Anything else you'd like to tell us about that you're working on that's kind of cool and might be of interest to folks, or you got to kind of keep it quiet?
If it's things we're working on for the future, I can't really talk about it.
Okay.
Because they may or may not come true, and I hate having to say, yeah, I said that, but it didn't happen.
Okay, fair enough.
But the fact of the matter is, we're out there every day fighting for you and your listeners' rights to carry whatever knife they want, wherever they want, however they want. And we're the only ones getting it done. 37 bills enacted repealing knife bans in 26 states since 2010 and over 150 cities and towns. Not a bad record for a 3-person organization.
No, nicely done. Appreciate you doing it. All right. Well, awesome. Well, thanks for coming in today. I hope it was fun coming in. And I think it's great for people to hear, nobody knows the behind the scenes machinations that go on to make stuff happen.
They would throw up if they did.
It's ugly, huh?
It is ugly. You've heard the expression that watching legislation made is like watching sausages being made.
Yeah.
That's really an insult to sausage makers.
Really? It's awful, huh?
It's awful.
Is the Republic going to make it, or is it just too far gone? Or is it always on the edge of too far gone and it's just the nature of the beast?
I don't have an answer for that. All I know is how to fight, and we're going to continue fighting because this is what we do.
Are you pretty optimistic? I mean, does it seem like you must find it worth doing?
I find it immensely gratifying when we succeed, because think about it, and you can relate to this. You're building products that are going to be handed out to future generations.
Sure.
Okay. How many times do you get to do something like I do that is going to affect not just people today, but their kids, their grandkids, their great-grandkids?
Sure.
These laws that we're getting repealed mean that our kids and grandkids are going to live in a freer society. And whether that carries through to other parts of what's going on in America, I don't know. I can't control that, but I can tell you that Knife Rights is going to continue our fight, so you can carry whatever the heck you want.
I got a pitch for you, okay? Since knife carriers have a disproportionately high percentage of Anglo-type carriers, I think all knife laws are racist. Maybe you guys could start working that angle a little bit.
I'll take that under advisement.
They're not Jim Crow, they're Jim Joe.
So the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of the knife restrictions that are currently in place were put in after the Civil War to keep blacks from having weapons. So Bowie knives, length restrictions, stuff like that. They couldn't have firearms, so now we
So
won't
they
let
are
them have big
racist.
knives.
So the rules are racist.
And the others, the switchblade restrictions came in the late 50s.
They
on
were
the basis-
anti-Italian.
Anti-gang, most of whom were not necessarily Caucasian.
And it was a West Side Story that probably did it. Huh?
And this is one of the reasons that we get support from the left, even though the arguments are the same.
Yeah.
For firearms, the arguments are no different.
Right, but the knife thing's not as hot buttony and it's not as polarized.
And they can get behind that.
Oh, that's good. Well, Doug, thanks for doing what you do. Appreciate you coming in. All right, sports fans, that's the show for the day. Thanks for joining us. A little bit about legislation going out into the big bad world, trying to make it so that you can blade sling at will and not all of a sudden have an anvil fall out of the sky where some person from way on high has turned you into a criminal for carrying around your pocket knife. It's Greg Medford from the Greg Medford Show. I'm out.